Preston Thorne, great Gamecock defensive tackle and host of the early game on 107.5. All right. Like the universal question, the universal answer to how was Thanksgiving, Preston, as you know, is, oh, it was great. Ate way too much. I'm still full. Have you ever met anybody that's like, oh, I just didn't eat enough this Thanksgiving? No, nobody says that, right? But what was it that put you over the top? You had too much of what?
I was on here last time. I said I got to make sure I get that sweet potato casserole. So I definitely got the sweet potato casserole. I made sure I had that. And this year, I usually do turkey, but for some reason I was in a ham mood this year, and so I went pretty hard on the glazed ham. On more so on Friday than Thursday, though. Actually,
Did you come home to Somerville, or were you still in Columbia?
I actually went up to I got a cousin where we do Thanksgiving up in Raleigh, so I was up in Raleigh with the big family. It was really cool scene. We had a bunch of family there, so it was awesome.
Do just out of curiosity, are you the largest member of your family, or do you have you are?
It's a great question. It's really it's seriously a good question because my brother's 9 years older than me. We have the same biological parents. We look alike, but my brother is a defensive back body.
Oh,
wow.
Not a defensive line body. And I mean, if you was to look at us, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're brothers, but body frame wise, we do not look like. So yeah, I am the largest person in my family.
okay.
Where are you now compared to your playing weight? Because I know sometimes that can go one of two ways when you linemen retire.
It's a
right?
great question. Another
You
great question.
gone a
Mike.
lot, or you slim down a lot?
I've been on both extremes.
Okay. Okay.
I've been up where I stepped on the scale. I was like, oh my God, how'd that happen? And then I've also been on the other side where people are like, are you okay? Is everything all right with you? So right now I'm about 20 down from my playing weight. And
Nice.
I feel pretty good right now.
You look good, man. You're bringing
Thank you,
sexy
man.
back to the table, Preston.
I appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, you and Strickland. We saw Strick on Saturday, at Flint's, and my wife was like, "That's John Strickland." And I was like, "Has she never met Strick?" I that didn't click with me.
Strick would have to bulk up just to play tight end now.
He would,
Man, every time I see Strick, I'm like, "What's up, man? What's going on, brother?"
I know.
But you're right, Mike. It usually does go one way or the other. Hopefully, it goes down the lighter way, but that is definitely a thing. I always hear people say like, I was so stressed out, I just couldn't eat anything. I was like, I've never had that issue.
I'm with you. On this, we'll move on. But on all these topics here, we were hanging out with the Brewers on Friday night, and I looked at Brewer and I said, "Let me just see if I can hug you and get my fingertips to touch around the other side." Barely, man. I'm like, dude, you were big in college. I mean, everybody knows this. We all know Ryan, but he is massive, dude. He is his kids are the safest kids on the planet. Like he just would never
muscle.
He is something.
The neck is where you can tell you guys are in game shape or not, right? Like I do a lot of the games on radio with Brian Baldinger. Baldy was a lineman at Duke, played for Spurrier, was his OC at Duke, played 13 years in the NFL. He showed me a picture when he played. He was like 302, and the neck was ridiculous. The neck just joined the shoulders like horizontally, not like a slope. And I was like, what happened to your neck? Because that's the first thing to go, Mike. When you lose all that weight, you lose the neck.
That's a good point. Solid point.
His coaches would make them. You'd go up against a wall, and you'd lean your head against the wall and literally try to move the wall. Now, obviously, you're not going to move the wall, but you're straining those neck muscles. It was a different type of training back then, Preston. But it was. I mean, those guys. You're so determined to make the weight that you have to be. What you said, you're around 300, right? When you play?
Yeah, I play like around 290-ish.
290-ish. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, because if not, you're going to get pushed around, right? I mean, if
Right.
you're 270, you're going to get pushed. So you could do all that stuff to get there, and then then you're like, okay, now I don't have to do it anymore. So you obviously went both directions, but now you're at a comfortable weight. Now
Yeah,
you're in.
I'm at a good weight now. But this adds to a lot of our discussion that we'll probably have. But I was a guy that I had to um I I had to get up to 290, but then because of the way I played, the way my style of game was, whenever I would push like 300, I would be strong, but I would be slow, and that wasn't conducive to what I needed to be able to do in order for me to be successful. So it was like a
Right.
real fine balancing act for me.
I feel like there's been a lot of conversation about things like that with this football program over the years. Like if you go back, there's maybe a year or two under Coach Muschamp where it was like, man, these guys, like, what did they do in the offseason? They just all look big and slow. And then we'll make some adjustments, and then they do that. And I mean, I know it depends on the type of players you got in and stuff too. But let me ask you this, Preston. Obviously, 4-8 sucks, especially when you end the season with a loss to your rival. But when you look at the outrage and all of the conversations, the heated conversations that have been going on throughout the year with this program, and certainly since Saturday, is there some sort of net positive that you can take out of the season that reflects the state of the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously easy. 4-8 is obviously disappointing based on what we wanted to have this year, but and nobody wants to hear it, and it's unacceptable. I get it, but to answer the question, we did not walk on the field and not feel competitive in a majority of in all the games that we played. And I will just say, during the previous coach's era, that wasn't the case all the time. And I don't know what that, you can take that for what it's worth. If you're frustrated and you don't want to hear that, I understand that. But there were times during the previous regime where you just didn't feel like we were going to be competitive, and we weren't. And so, if you wanted to take that now, did we finish these games this year? Absolutely not, and that's going to need to be something that changes quickly, obviously. But I never felt watching any game throughout the season that we were not competitive or that we didn't have a chance to win.
I mean, I would even say a few, there were times early in Coach Beamer's tenure when he got here, it was like, it's going to be a long day. I thought there were a couple of games this year, most notably Texas A&M, where I thought going into the game, just with the way things have been going, I thought this is going to be a disaster. And the result turns out to be a disaster, but like to your point, they were in the game. So then what do you make of this? 35 total points scored in the fourth quarter this year through 12 games, but only 21 after game one.
That's a very interesting question. Okay, so maybe the first question, I think the first thing everybody always talks about is conditioning. What was their conditioning like? What was the situation there? Because the fourth quarter is supposed to be the time where the conditioning shines. Play calling in the fourth quarter, I think we had a tendency to get kind of tight. I'm not sure if our coaches were able to live up to the moments. I always point to that Alabama game where we had what we did on our fourth downs, and then Alabama had what they did on their fourth down situations where, they dialed up some ball plays that it felt like they had in the can that they had worked on, and we just looked unprepared. And that was pretty uncharacteristic for these teams. So I would first off check on the conditioning. That's the first thing I would look at. And then the second thing is, were the coaches built for those moments to make the calls when they needed? And I didn't feel like we were this year.
So interesting, because last year Carolina finished off teams in the fourth quarter. I mean, they scored
Absolutely.
125 points in the fourth quarter last year. It was their highest scoring quarter of all four of them throughout the season. They would either win the game in the fourth or they finished you off, like really put you to bed, like they did in that Texas A&M game.
Oh, one more point. And as you bring up last year, I think there's probably the lack of a leadership void. Probably a void in leadership on the field where when it's getting tighter, who do I actually look to get us through these tougher moments? Where as last year's team had probably a guy at each position group, I don't know if we had many, if any, at all this year.
So what steps do you take to correct that?
You know, that's a great question. Obviously, I think you have to work on building those leaders. I think it's a cop out to say like, oh, we just didn't have any leaders this year. That's part of the process. Just like you build guys in the weight room, you can build leadership qualities. You identify some guys that you think have the qualities that you want, and you work with them in the off season, and you make a distinct point to say like, hey, this is going to be your role this year, and it has to be somebody that's contributing to the team. Contributing during game weeks, not contributing. And I'll just, for instance, like Luke Doty, obviously a leader or somebody who people respected on the team. But if you're not playing on Saturdays, it's really difficult for you to have the say in how things are going on the field because you're not there. And so that's a tough process. So I say identify some guys early that you think are going to be able to contribute and then pour into them, whatever that means. Leadership classes, get creative with it, but they need to be able to figure out how they're going to lead the team next year.
Does your quarterback have to be one of those guys?
Preferably, yes, because he's the person that's making all the calls. He's the person that has the ball every time. He's the person we have to look to when there's a problem. But let's say if it's Lenoris, if he's not a leader and he just continues to perform the way he does, maybe we don't need that from him. Maybe he can just continue to just play well, and maybe he's not that guy. Maybe he can be an offensive lineman. I do think it needs to be one of your core guys. Don't think it works out well when it's your receivers because they're a little bit temperamental. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it could be those guys. So I do think it's probably going to have to be your quarterback or a lineman to be those leadership dudes.
Can't have a receiver as your leader. Too temperamental, man. This guy's getting a little touchy.
You know how football goes, man. We love him. We love him, but I don't know if they can be the leader guy. I just don't know.
Guy's a little touchy. I don't know that I'd let him lead this group onto the field.
All I'm saying.
What about that? Yeah. Since you just mentioned receivers, you got two guys that notably didn't play, right? I mean, Rowe had been a starter in a lot of games. He didn't get a snap. And then in the case of Mazio this year, it just kind of came and went, right? It's a highly recruited class, certainly a lot of ability there. You've got some guys coming back, but what do you think of that room looking ahead to next year?
I'm not, I know a lot of people love the idea of having depth. That's one of the things you'll hear coming out of the spring. We got so many guys, but I don't know if you need that many guys. I mean, I don't know if you need 8. I think you might need 6. And let's roll with the ones that we have. And so I don't necessarily need to have a bunch of guys. I would be interested to know what happened with Mazio this year. And it could be a lot of things, right? It could be anything. Some of which could be his fault or responsibility. Some could be on the coaches. Who knows what happens? And oftentimes this happens with young people. Who knows? And so, I'm not even gonna, because I don't know the story. But obviously something changed between this year and last year. Yeah. So maybe he gets back on track. Maybe with the new OC, he gets new life and he feels his way. Who knows what could happen? So I would just say, yes, those dudes need to step up, but I don't need 8 of them. I probably need 6, and 4 guys and maybe 2 backups, and we can roll with that.
All right, you're in charge of the transfer portal. We give you all the money. All the money is in Preston Thorne's lap. What are you doing with it?
Ooh, okay.
Or where are you starting?
Yeah, well, I think depending on what I feel like the offensive line looks like, we have to figure out that situation on the offensive line. I feel like we tried that this year. It didn't work. The transfer portal situation on the offensive line did not perform up to any standard. And I don't know whether that's evaluation miss or whether or not they didn't adjust. Whatever it was, it didn't work. I like value shopping, so I think somebody in the mold of like a Torricelli, they don't grow those dudes on trees, but I think there's some dudes getting it done at lower levels that could probably come up and are hungry to play at at this level. That's kind of the route I would think. That's probably the course of action I would take through all transfer portal situations. I would probably try and scour some of those lower levels, G5, HBCUs, wherever the case is, because y'all know this dude's getting it done at those levels. You just gotta have to go out and find them and see where they are. That's probably, if you was to ask me, that's probably where I would focus my attention if I was going in the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you brought up Torricelli. I remember when he was, I think when he committed, I don't know if he had signed yet or not, but John, I'm going to call John Strickland out here. I guess had talked to why am I mind blanking here? His coach at North Carolina A&T.
Yeah, Cedric Williams.
Cedric Williams. Sorry, Ced.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and John said, "You think that guy can play here at South Carolina?" And he said, "He's going to start at South Carolina." I mean, he was that confident in it, and of course, that dude kind of knows what an offensive lineman looks like, right? And certainly knows what it takes to play in this league. But then you look at some of the guys that they brought in this year, and they just weren't very good. I mean, they just weren't. So I guess the question, I don't even know if this is a question for you. It's just the question is, when you go to that level to find quality trench guys on both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line, how do you identify who will be a player at this level versus who's a player at that level? Do you have anything to add to that?
It's a great question. I think you probably have to look at what sort of mentality were they working with. Were they focused on the lower levels? Did the only reason they won was because maybe they were out physicaling people at the lower levels, because that might not translate to the SEC. I think it's a lot of the same things you think about recruiting. Like if you're recruiting a kid and you're like, all right, the only reason he's winning is because he's just bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else. That's fine, but that might not translate when you get to the next level. So that's the first thing I would probably look at. And then I probably have to watch his tape and see how he was, I hate to say it, man, how he was finishing blocks. What level of aggression did he play with? I mean, we all didn't love it from Torricelli, but he got those 2 15-yarders against Clemson, which weren't great at the time, but it was like, all right, if that's what we're doing. And I will point out, we didn't see any of that this year. Zero. No extra, no. And I mean, I'm not calling for it, but it is a sign.
It's a great point. That's a great point. Well, I don't know. Maybe they didn't have any room for some of that. They committed enough penalties. You know what I mean? I mean, if you false start and then you run out and tackle a guy after the next snap and get another 15 yards, we got problems here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think just some of this finishing all blocks and all that type of stuff, you're gonna probably get into like their mentalities and things like that. You want to get. I don't think it's probably much different than how you would recruit a high school athlete, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you saw a little bit of that from one guy in particular, Trevon Ball. I mean, every time I watch Trevon play, he might have a bad game, man, but I don't ever look at him and think that there's a lack of energy or effort or ability there. I really like him, and I don't want to be personal with guys throwing coaches under the bus and things like that. And obviously Sean stepped in and did everything he possibly could in the last couple of weeks, but I'm just going to kind of ask this point blank. Do you think that offensive line this year, understanding the talent that was there coming into the season, and I know that they had some injuries, like Kaysen was a big injury, but do you think that group was better than what they showed through 12 games?
No, well, okay. Let me make sure I'm hearing your question right. I think after 12 games, we found out that they were bad.
Yeah.
All the numbers, all the stars in the rankings show that they should be a lot better than what they're producing on the field, and that's what seems to be pretty troubling, is because they have not produced pretty consistently for years now, and so we got all the ingredients, but we can't seem to make the meal out of it, and that's a little bit troubling, and I think that's a conversation. Some hard questions need to be asked and answered within the building about why hasn't this been working.
Mm-hmm. whoever the new OC is, do you have an opinion on whether it's best for him to be the one who chooses his offensive line coach or not?
I think you got to give him that room. You got to give him that runway to be able to do that. If he has a guy, especially like Mike was talking about earlier, if it's a guy with a proven system, which a lot of college guys are, you know how you want your O-line dude to run these things.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be wasting time trying to get a new guy up on your terminology or getting things exactly the way you want it. So if they have an O-line guy that they really like and that obviously that you like too as the head coach, I think you kind of have to give him that runway to be able to do that.
I'm throwing the tough ones at you today.
He's a good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much good there is after the finish to the season.
Got to finish what you start, man. Got to finish
Absolutely.
what you start. My bad, fellas.
No,
No.
you're all good.
You are good. Do you remember the question?
I do.
Okay.
The question was based on the circumstances around, does anybody on the offensive staff do they deserve to come back? And I guess my answer to that question was, I think the offensive coordinator should have carte blanche to make the hires that he feels he needs to make. Some of them could come back if he feels that way, but I think we have to be honest. Everybody had a hand in having one of the worst offenses in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, yes, it was Shula was the coordinator and Teasley was the O-line coach, but everybody else was in the room too. And so when you're part of that, when you're part of a winner, you get the spoils of being a winner. When you're part of losers, you got to answer questions. So I think the OC and even Shane also should probably do some evaluating.
Yeah. And I'll be really curious to see how it all works out too, because for what it's worth, I'll just give my opinion on this. I think that they have good I think the world of Mike Furry. Like if you lost Mike Furry as your wide receivers coach, he's going to go somewhere big time. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing, right? I don't think this conversation, I wasn't asking that necessarily on a personal level for him or a guy like Sean Elliott, who we all know and love and really respect the job he's done over the years. It's not about that. It's about whoever you hire, if they need to find somebody to get it right, like this is the guy I need that helps make this system go for me for whatever reason that may be, should they be granted that opportunity to make that change on the offensive staff? I think those need to be separated, in my opinion. But also at the same time, I question, if you got a good offense, what's the difference in having a great wide receivers coach versus having a great wide receivers coach, right? So I don't know the answer to that. But that's why I threw the question out. I was really curious what your response would be.
No, I think it's a fair question. Like I said, there have to be some. I guess this is my theme for the off season, is I know Shane wants to really get back at it and jump back into it, but I think everybody kind of needs to figure out what went wrong, what in the processes went wrong, where did we maybe overlook some things or take some things for granted, or what questions need to be asked. And there might be some tough questions that need to be asked about what are people contributing, whether that's through knowledge or through the culture in the building or whatever the case is. And the offensive coordinator probably needs to ask folks like, hey, man, what happened? Why wasn't this successful? And everybody needs to have some pretty honest conversations to figure out why did they find themselves in that spot.
Preston, I just had one more for you on the opposite side of the ball. Quick hitter. What do you think the chances are Clayton White takes a head coaching job? Because they're starting to get filled here now. The lane drama is over. All the SEC slots have been filled. These things trickle down now to the G5 openings, which there certainly are going to be quite a few. What do you think the chances are that Clayton White is back as DC in 2026?
Well, from what I understand, he was a finalist, or at least, in the final rounds for a couple of jobs last year. His name is heating up. If that's something that he wants to do with his career, this might be the year where he needs to, take advantage of the success that he's had. Because, when you get to the reality of what the situation is, everybody next year is on. If we're talking about Shane being in a potential hot seat situation or a prove it type of year, well, that means everybody's on that year. And so you have to figure out what it is that you want to do. I just don't know, and I don't know Clayton. I just wonder. I just don't know. From what I understand, he wants to be a head coach, but especially with defensive guys, that's not always what they really want out of their career. So I don't know if that's his aspirations, but if it is, this probably needs to be here. He needs to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would need to be a good fit for him. I think Tony Morrell reported that. I mean, we all know that chances at Coastal, they have an opening, but I don't know that Coastal is going to pay Clayton White what he's making now as the defensive coordinator. I'm sorry, Mike, I don't want to delay your segment anymore, but just I want to follow up on something since you asked that question. What would be the difference in hiring a defensive coordinator versus hiring an offensive coordinator for Shane Beamer, understanding the fact that the strength of this team for the last 5 years has been defense?
This is what I'll say, and I'm not opposed to going the Clayton White route in this new OC hire, meaning somebody who may be under the radar or somebody who's been successful at a lower level. I don't think that, to me, I told you, I'm value shopping. So I'm okay with somebody who is up and coming, somebody who made people, because when Clayton got hired, there weren't a lot of people jumping for joy. People were like, all right, we'll see. That he seems to know ball, I'm totally with that. The only thing I would say is that I think offensively it's probably more systems process, and you have a chance to bring in a dude who really has a unique fingerprint that he could put on the offense. Whereas defensive guys maybe are a little bit more fluid as far as what they run. Offensive guys, you get a chance to hire somebody who can make us run a South Carolina offense, and that'd be cool.
Just so everybody understands, this is all pure speculation. It's just part of the conversation, but I would venture a guess, just a guess, that if Clayton White was granted an opportunity to be a head coach and South Carolina did have to fill that role, I would imagine that Chris Hampton out at Oregon is probably somewhere on the list for Shane Beamer. Chris, obviously, former defensive back.
I'd definitely be a fan for that. I would say if he's good enough for Dan Lanning, he's good enough for us.
I'd say so. Yeah, him and Dan Lanning seem to get along pretty well. So who knows? But well, man, we're in the holiday season, so I hope you've got the holiday spirit. The tree is up, I'm assuming, at the Thorne household. Okay.
Yeah, we are. We're pretty strict. Right after Thanksgiving, we're gonna go the weekend after. We do it the Sunday after Thanksgiving, so that's usually our routine. So now the house looks crazy because you're transitioning, you're getting stuff out of boxes and all that stuff. But we are up and running.
All right. Quick plug here. We're gonna make him blush, Mike. We're making blush for all of you out there that have children. There's a couple of books that need to be under the Christmas tree this year, aren't they, Preston? Go ahead, promote yourself. Go ahead. It's okay.
I'll do it. All right. So we got our Just a Chicken story, which is about when a Gamecock doesn't think he's just a chicken. He finds out he's a Gamecock. You might need to read that one this year. And then my favorite one, my favorite one is Just a Chicken Little, where all the chickens think the coop is crumbling and this is the worst time ever. And then somebody has to step in and tell them it's going to be okay. So that might be
wow. These are not children's books, Preston. These are books that the adults should be purchasing this holiday season.
You know how it is when you watch cartoons with your kids. It's like, oh, that joke was for me. I get that.
Yeah. Or the Family Guy, where they're definitely for adults and not kids.
Exactly.
It's a whole other story.
And how can folks purchase?
Yeah, you can get them from athletesandartists.net. Athletesandartists.net. You can get them over there, and we'll get them to you, man.
Yeah, we are. That Just a Chicken. I told you, Riley, my daughter, she did her first grade book report on that book and dressed up as a cheerleader and presented it to the class, and it was really neat. They love these books. So and so do I, because it's great to read them to them, and it makes me feel better about myself too, as you pointed out. So put those underneath your Christmas tree this year, ladies and gentlemen. They are incredible. Langston Moore and Preston Thorne. Who knew that they could author something as award-winning as these suckers are? Incredible stuff, from football to writing. Thank you, buddy. Great to see you. Thanks for sticking around and finishing your answer. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Appreciate y'all.
Hopefully we have more answers than questions next week.
I'm ready for it. I'm excited. At least, if nothing else, we have some hope in the coaching search. So let's go.
We can mix
There
some
you
hoops
go.
in too. How about that?
Yep.
See you, bud.
All right,
Thanks,
appreciate
Preston.
y'all.
Appreciate it.